Imagine discovering a place so dangerous that even the locals refuse to say its name after sunset. A place surrounded by mist, where the mountains seem to whisper, and where one wrong decision can change your life forever. Three friends entered this forbidden highland looking for answers, but what they discovered there was far more terrifying than they expected. Because their journey would take them from a deadly alligator island to a creepy island filled with abandoned dolls, and finally, to a place where they would have to choose between saving themselves or saving someone else. This is the story of how they survived. Marcus was the brave one, Lena was the thinker, and Daniel was the one who always believed there had to be a logical explanation for everything. They had traveled together for years, but this trip was different. They weren't searching for fame. They weren't searching for treasure. They were searching for the truth behind an old story, a story about a forbidden highland where travelers supposedly disappeared without a trace. Before they left, an elderly villager stopped them. His hands were trembling. He looked at the mountain, then looked directly at Marcus. "The mountain doesn't forgive careless people," he whispered. Lena asked, "What happened to the others?" The old man lowered his eyes. "They went looking for adventure and came back looking for forgiveness." Nobody laughed, because there was something in his voice, something that made the entire journey suddenly feel real. They continued anyway. As they climbed higher, the village disappeared beneath the clouds. The wind became colder. Birds stopped singing. Even the insects seemed to vanish. Then Daniel noticed something carved into a stone. 3 words. "Turn back, now." He looked at his friends. "Maybe we should listen." But Marcus shook his head. "We're already here." Those words would haunt him later. Hours later, they reached the other side of the mountain, and there, beneath the cliffs, was an island. The water around it was strangely still, but the surface was covered with movement. Daniel zoomed in with his camera. His face changed. Those aren't logs. They were alligators, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The island was known by locals as Deadwater Island. Nobody visited it. Nobody lived there. And yet, something was glowing on the far shore. Marcus wanted to cross. Lena refused. "We don't know what's over there." Daniel pointed toward the glowing light. "Someone might be trapped." Silence. That sentence changed everything. They didn't know who was there. They didn't know why. And they didn't know what waited between them and the island. But they decided they couldn't simply walk away. So they searched for another route and found an old wooden bridge leading toward the abandoned island. When they reached the island, they discovered something even stranger. Dolls, hundreds of them, hanging from trees, sitting on broken chairs, watching from abandoned windows. Some were covered in dust. Others looked almost new. Lena whispered, "Why would anyone bring all these dolls here?" Nobody answered. Then, one of the dolls moved. Daniel froze. Marcus turned around. The doll was sitting perfectly still, but its head was now facing them. Then they heard it, a faint sound. "Help." They followed the voice behind an abandoned wooden house. There, they found a frightened little girl hiding inside. She had been separated from her family during a storm. She had survived alone for 2 days. Lena immediately knelt beside her. "You're safe now." The girl pointed toward the mountains. "My father went that way." Marcus looked at the dark trail. They had finally found the reason someone had been calling for help. But now, they had another problem. The storm was coming. The sky turned black. Rain began pounding the island. The old bridge started shaking in the wind. Marcus wanted to leave immediately, but the child pointed toward the mountain. "My father is still there." Marcus closed his eyes. For the first time, he realized courage wasn't about doing something dangerous. Sometimes, courage meant doing the right thing, even when you were afraid. They climbed toward the mountain shelter, and there, they found the girl's father, weak, exhausted, but alive. The moment he saw his daughter, he dropped to his knees. She ran into his arms. No words were needed. Lena looked away, trying to hide her tears. Daniel lowered his camera. And Marcus, the man who had wanted adventure more than anything, finally understood something. A life isn't measured by how many dangerous places you survive. It's measured by the people you refuse to leave behind. They began the journey home. The storm slowly disappeared. The alligator island faded behind the mist. The dolls became tiny shadows among the trees. And the forbidden highland became silent again when they finally returned to the village. The elderly man who had warned them was waiting. He looked at the rescued father and his daughter. Then he smiled. "Now you understand," he said. "The mountain was never the real danger." Marcus looked at the mountain. Then what was? The old man answered, "Pride. The mountain only tests your body. Pride tests your heart." Marcus finally understood. The warning wasn't meant to stop people from exploring. It was meant to remind them that curiosity without wisdom can become recklessness, and courage without compassion can become selfishness. Years later, Marcus would remember that mountain. Not because of the alligators, not because of the creepy dolls, not because of the storm. He remembered it because that was the day he stopped trying to prove how fearless he was and started learning how to be responsible. Because sometimes the greatest adventure isn't surviving danger. It's becoming a better person after you survive it. Now tell me, if you were Marcus, would you have crossed the bridge to rescue someone you didn't know? Or would you have turned back? Tell me your answer in the comments. And remember, sometimes the person who needs saving may be the person who teaches you the biggest lesson. Follow us for more emotional stories, because every story has a lesson.